Okay, so I was mentioning that the SolidWorks users group meeting last night was some tricks and tips for 2018, and one of the items. Well, I'm loaded up 2017 all of a sudden, but one of the items that I would recommend that you check out under the help is that we're going to look for keyboard shortcuts. And it's time savers, something, something, and probably should have made sure that was going to load, and we're going to have an internet connection. Time-saving keyboard shortcuts. All right, so I can remember keyboard shortcuts, the time-saving not so much. All right, so this group of the Alt-Drag, we've done some of these, Tab, Shift, so out of the assemblies first, and then copy and paste, standard windows, dimensions and annotations. The one that I should have known is that when you let's see, where's that? The shift click for the dimensions. We've been going in and setting min-max conditions. Well, if you are holding down the shift button when you set the dimension for a circle or an arc, it puts it at the min, it puts it at the max. So, it's one of those, trying to remember if I've ever heard that, but apparently if I did, it didn't set. So the basic display, being able to navigate around inside of drawings, and then the move, basic selections, sketching. One that I found kind of interesting was, let's see, the control and drawing a line or drawing your geometry suppresses the inference lines. So if you have geometry that is trying to generate a relation to everything, being able to shift and drag and have it ignore those automatic relations, that's pretty handy. Right. And then we haven't done much in the 3D sketch, so just want to point those out. I ended up printing this out and took my yellow highlighter and went along and said these are the ones that I got to remember to do, and do them consistently enough so that they become part of my workflow and be part of my habits. The other thing then is under our customize. I need to be in a part. And let's see, the first part that we're going to do is metrics, so I might as well load up that template. Is we can come up to the customize, and over on the keyboard there is a print list and a copy list. And what I did was copy the list to the keyboard and then paste it into an Excel worksheet, which gave me 3 or 4 columns. And I was able to sort because a big portion of the whatever 1,200 selections do not have any keyboard assignment to them. All right, so really it's the ones that that we're interested in, or something that I might want to use, and certainly not all the letters on the keyboard are in use as well, so there's room to make adjustments. So then I ran a sort on the shortcuts, and was able to generate a list that instead of being 25 pages long was 2 pages long of everything that is in there by default. And that's another one went along with yellow highlighter. This is one that I need to start using or should be using. All right. The other item that came up is I don't use the gestures, and I will show those to you now. But enable mouse gestures is holding down the right button and dragging to the right, and you get a donut. And the donut pops up with either 4, 8, or for 2018, 12. And it's hard enough to manage 8. I'm not sure what we're going to do with 12. So if I drag to the right, there's the donut, and if I go up to that view, we're picking left, right, top, bottom type views. But old habits, Control 1 puts me in the front. I'm pretty well happy with that. So let's do the quick. Wow, I didn't know that. I should have known that. If I have a couple of circles, and doesn't really matter the size. We go into the dimension and hold down the shift button since I am on this side of the circle. And this side of the circle, I'm going to get its max condition. And I'll just go ahead and over-define these. So there's my min condition, also holding down the shift button. And then the min max and the max min. Oh, finally one of them goes over define. Alright, so that shift button, rather than picking and going back over and to the leaders and then all the way down. No, I'm missing something there. Uh-oh, got something going on with my screen. But all the way down at the bottom and selecting those radio buttons for min and max, I think that's one that I'll be doing quite often here. So we'll just undo through a couple of those since it's not too far out. And then so every once in a while, I guess the takeaway is every once in a while, go into the help file, look for shortcuts, look at your keyboard hotkeys and those types of things, and see if there's anything that you are ready to use to speed up your workflow. Alright, so jumping into the cam bracket. This has some optical illusions because pretty much the back is flat from point to point, or reasonably planar with the T-slot, but because of the notch, it gives the illusion that this is stepping back some distance. All right, so it's one of those, take 20-30 seconds and stare at it and make sure that you have a really good concept of what it is that you're going to draw if it's purely isometric. Again, on the CSWA, which is what I'm targeting here, is that you're going to get multi-views. You're not going to be left with just an isometric and the big clump of dimensions on everything. But you do want to go through and spend some time, look at every drawing, on the left, read through all the instructions. When it's in the assemblies, if there's something to download, get it downloading, get it to your computer. Just get a real good concept of where you're going so that, that first 1 or 2 minutes is just focused on getting your head wrapped around the exam. Look at all the questions, see what the progression of, I'm going to use this, and then I'm going to modify a dimension, and then I'm going to add some more geometry, and that could be questions 1, 2, and 3. And so question 1 all of a sudden became much more important that you hit the mark. All right, going into question 2, with building on question 1, if question 1's wrong, chances are question 2 is going to have the same problem. All right, going forward with it. So picking an origin. This, we're not really being given origins here, but I'm just going to go with the lower left, just as a convenient spot to kind of draw everything out some distance at 30-degree angle, and pick that up. The reason that I'm doing that is because it's probably going to be a lot less painful to draw it in the orientation of the isometric than it will be to try to draw it flat and transpose all of those numbers. All right, keeping it in that orientation. Then if I want to lay it flat, then if I want to rotate it to some position, we can use the direct editing move copy bodies. So probably the only other origin that I would really jump out is maybe along this back edge, where it goes from transitions from vertical down. But again, I want to leave some room to add some coordinate systems and pick some different centers of mass from those coordinate systems. All right, so I'm going to just start on the lower left with our sketch, and coming off and then up, and then just a little bit of the step, and over and back. There's one of those interesting noises. Okay, so I've got parallel, I've got an inference line, and there's perpendicular. So actually that was one of those times that I really wanted those I really wanted those relations in the sketch. All right, so thickness is 14. And let's jump back over from the lower corner up to the vertex is 96, and then we can pull back some of those other numbers once we kind of have that established. And we have a limit dimension for the T on the backside, so we could do that as separate geometry. It's not a requirement that it goes in. So that line will be 96. And the issue, as usual, with trying to draw everything is that when I stretch, it's going to stretch pretty much however it wants to. So let's see, we have 27 on the height. We have an overall of 54. Let's see, the angle is already set, and as that drags, that drags. All right, so better put the angles in. So I want my origin, endpoint, and the line. Nope, didn't. Oh, something was already selected, so undo a couple times. And go with the endpoint, the line. That gives me the four-headed arrow. So natural extension. Otherwise, I would have to pick something. Oh, and then 45 on the brain. Let's go to 30, which is the actual angle. And then let's see. So 30. We had 45 up here. There's a 3 millimeter offset, and I got the 27 and the 45 in, so that should be okay. Or 27 and 54. Overall dimension, 51 between centers. So pretty much going to need to have that circle in place. Oh, jumped out of my line. There we go. Make sure I get the arrow. Go between those two. And that went fully defined, so that means that there are still some stretching and shrinking to go on. Alright, so that's going to be a horizontal relation. So coming off of, we're seeing the extension over to that center line, and then that's 51. It's 51 to the center of the slots. And the center of the T slots. So I guess I need to get the T slot in there. And now I don't see a dimension. So 5 millimeters on the depth, 51 up, back from the point. I'm not concerned about the 30 degree. And hopefully we will, well, we'll just have to stack up until we see an overall. Alright, so a couple of lines. And then we'll go from the midpoint back so that I can leave those symmetrical. That needs to be a construction line. Oh, let's see, I got midpoint, so that one's already in there. 5 millimeters for the depth. 51 from the center line. And the scary part would be that if we were to make this on center line without a center line mark or without an actual dimension, that's a pretty big assumption here. So I'm going to continue on with the purpose of looking for those last couple of dimensions. And let's see, we want to pick the midpoint, and then the line can be coincident. And yeah, that's about right. Reversed maybe a little bit more than I would have liked it to. All right. So that one's 10 millimeters off of the inside. Nope. Too many lines. 10 millimeters off the inside. Oh, that's just fun how it keeps changing on me. All right, the circle then is 10 millimeters, diameter 10 millimeters, depth of 19. And still had some other things selected. Okay, make sure that goes away. All right. Underneath, 751 back. So there again, vertex, ledge, and circle are all on the same plane, so we'll go coincident. Except that wasn't quite what I wanted it to do. All right, so we're going to see if that that assumption on the height is going to play out. All right, so 17.42, 17.58. Maximum material condition on an exterior feature is going to be the larger number. So we're going to go with the 17.58. This is not going to be a layout sketch, so I'm reasonably assured that when I bring this into the drawing, if I mark this for the drawing and put in the limit dimension, it will come across. All right, so 42, we should be looking at a minus 0.16. All right, so I still have to figure out what's going on with my step up here without an overall height. So that being the case, we're going to go back to the line, find that midpoint, and take it out of the mix so that I can get this to drag in a little bit closer where I need it. Oh, and that was 45. Yeah, that 45 didn't actually help me. All right, we're going to have to find some numbers that work here. All right, so what was the step? We said that was 3 millimeters. I think I'm digging myself in deeper. So if this is the exam, this is the point where we start to panic. This is where you need to go through the process and figure out what we're doing with all these numbers. All right, so I've got that little mix going on there. Still okay with the 10 millimeters, but something going on with that overall height. .96 to the point. Yeah, all that looks good. Since it comes back 45 up. Okay, so all that horizontal is locking it in. Well, no, it's not a multi-body part, so. All right, 14, 27. Okay, so the other side of this is, I'm pretty sure I built this before. The other side of this is maybe the numbers don't work. So that being the case, I'm going to go with the not read only, the driven. Let's see if that was back to the midpoint. What would that value be? Verticals. Okay, so make sure that I didn't get any inferred relations that are messing me up somewhere. Yep, just not seeing it on this one. So we're just going to keep going down the list. All right, so looking back at the numbers, 13 millimeter ream. So that leads me to believe that we have an M10 and 13 millimeters. We're back to that trying to guess to scale the drawing, 14 millimeters up. Now 27 works. 10 over 3. Okay, so I'm still chasing numbers. And I want to see what these start looking like if we make the adjustments. Oh. And we're going to have to switch those back over one at a time. So that's looking pretty good at 86. That one's not too far off at 51. except for 52.7 goes okay, and then 51 brings it in just enough to drive it back. 510. Okay, let me have it. I really want to take that one off driven, and now it's not letting me. Alright, so let's go with this one, 51. With a 14 millimeter center line, that's not going to quite make it. So I still need that stack up. Alright, so if I can't get it switched back, alright, so we have something that looks close. This is going to be a good example of a bad example. Alright, well, let's go ahead and build out the rest of the technique on the assembly. On the commercial industrial side, this would put me in a position where I would take it over to the assembly and see where it fits and where it doesn't fit and where the numbers actually need to fall out to start to make this work. So we got rid of the midpoint. So that's being driven by the 51, which is the stack up of all the rest of these numbers. So, you know, just kind of doing the rough scaling. Okay, we're going to extrude it out. We have the contours and regions. I left the box, so we'll have to let that trim out. Overall is 133. Let's go ahead and put the slots in. Now, if we build this right, when we do figure out what those numbers are supposed to be, then the expectation would be that all of this this other geometry would update accordingly. Oh, I got a center line. All right, so 14. And then 19 for the center. And let's just go for the straight slot, and did not want the midpoint. Alright, so this is also 19 by 14, so when we go to make the slots equal, you're going to have the additional make equal, you're making the whole slot equal. Alright, so it treats it kind of as a macro, and that, or as a group, that all of that geometry is shared. Okay, 38 between centers. And we'll make sure that it's attached somewhere, and that should get it to where we can extrude cut through. Alright, so next one will be the angled face. Go back normal 2. starting our new sketch that's going to come up to the corner, out 30 degrees and then down some distance. Alright, so from the back is 108. And our line is, let's just go between the edge and the line. We'll set that to the 30 degrees. And this can be a through all cut. So we're just checking to make sure that the direction is going to remove the material. And let it chop out that corner. Alright, the upper corner then. Over and 39. So if we're going to stay at that angle, then I need to take into account as much of the geometry as will be visible from that that face to remove. And then that one can be an extruded cut. And this is going to need to be through all both, because we're just shy of the other face. Alright, so we look at this in wireframe and then kind of compare it to some of the hidden lines that they're showing. We have the back, we have up to the corner. We'll go to well, my isometric I rotated. Alright, we'll put the whole geometry in. That can be for the S key. And we're going to pick up a threaded hole, M10 by 1.5, so ANSI metric. And through all, not given a depth. Oh. And yep, the hole went through and we were given a 19 millimeter depth, so that one's going to have to get modified. Alright, so normal 2, 35 off of center line, 12. Yeah, not sure what we're going to end up with. So let's go ahead and put the 2 points in. Make those horizontal. And we had 35 and 35, so that'd be 70. First one is off 12. And then I would like to have the reference dimension just to make sure. And we'll leave that one driven. Kind of look over on the primary value, make sure that there's not additional decimal places that maybe you're getting rounded. And then up to 14. Alright, so what did we end up with there? 21. Okay, so we'll go ahead and accept. And then back into the S key. Well, this one's going to be bilateral dimensions or limit dimension. So we'll go with the maximum material condition on the hole, 12.62, smaller number. And then the limit dimension is 0.08. And we'll mark that one for the drawing. Alright, so if those are all in the same center, then I should be able to pick up the center line, go to my center marks, see how much we're going to need to adjust, because it's probably going to overrun. Oh, just barely made it. And we'll go ahead and extrude cut through. Alright, so we could do the reamed hole as a hole wizard item. We would have to go into and locate that geometry inside of the sketch to pick up its adjustment. Alright, so this is looking pretty ugly, but we're getting closer. No, that doesn't help. Alright, so that looks a little bit higher than we would like. Radiuses of 3. Okay, so I could pick the face, but that's not going to give me the, let's say, the same level of control. Well, that's going to be down to the backside. That's going to be a weird intersection if can't make that one work. All right, 3 millimeters, and we'll see what we get. All right. So I mentioned doing a move copy body. So under direct editing, if I translate this, or we have translate and rotate, if we pick an edge to translate around, then we would go to the adjacent angle 60 degrees. And that's either going to bring that up vertical. No, would help to keep the body. So positive 60. I guess it depends on which way we're pulling the rotation. That would be able to lay it down flat. Or if we went 30 degrees, sorry, minus 30 degrees, we'd be able to bring it up vertical. So if one of those positions works better for the detailing or putting it into the assembly, we draw it in one orientation, and then through the direct editing we can modify it. Alright, so let's go ahead and save. And we'll give this one the 8-25. Go ahead and make a drawing from the part. Let's go ahead and grab sidebar so I have a little more to work with. We'll bring in our views. Oh, I still didn't get the 19 millimeter in. All right, so going back and making corrections. We'll jump back into the part. The very first sketch, we're going to switch that circle over to construction geometry. All right, I want the fillet to be the last feature, and I'm going to go ahead and pick up the hole geometry on the end face. Let's see, it doesn't say anything, just 10 millimeters to a depth of 19. Well, since that's probably going to be a drill, I'll go into the S key, pick up the hole wizard. We're still in ANSI metric. We're going to switch over to drill sizes and scroll down to 10 millimeters. And instead of through all, we'll have a blind end condition, and it'll be 19 millimeters. Position then is at the center point of the sketch. Alright, so we can go back and hide. And if I right click on the rollback bar and tell it to roll to in, that will jump it to the very last feature. Alright, so back into the to the drawing. What I was looking for then was, we did the model items and my layout sketch didn't come across, so we're going to go with the entire model and mark for drawing, so there should be one item come in, and it's in inch. So if we go to millimeters, grams, and seconds, that pulls up the value. An angle comes in just right there. Put some dimensions on this to try and help verify. If I can decipher where this didn't quite work out. Okay, so the 96 showed to the vertex, so this would be one of those. Oh, and since that that hole changed, the center mark went to amber as undefined, so we'll have to update it. On the sketch then, if I go for an intersection, alright, so that virtual sharp, that will give me the point where those two edges intersect, and then we can pull the dimension back. Alright, so 51, yeah, that was still to the center line. Okay, so if that's not going to cooperate, occasionally the center line, I don't know if I have enough geometry there, so we'll just draw in a center line related. Okay, up to the whole geometry. And thinks I'm trying to adjust. Well, let's get the dimensions in there, and we'll clean it up here in a little bit. All right, so for the whole callouts, we'll go with annotation and pick up the geometry. One of the items, let's see, that came in as an actual dimension. That one is a note. We won't leave it as a note. I'll switch it to a whole callout so that we get the actual thread information. And don't know that I'm going to use that one. That top view would be better off telling it that I need a auxiliary view. So on the view layout, we'll go to auxiliary, pick my edge. We'll break the alignment by going into the right mouse button, go to alignment, break alignment, and then that frees up that view to drag to a new position. Alright, the A is just a little bit big there, so we'll see if we can shrink that up a little. Okay, picking the view, back into the annotations, pick up the center marks, 4 slots, one at each of the points, and these are aligned to the view, so that is what I want to pick up. Well, it's going to get kind of messy no matter what we do. Okay, so getting the dimensions in and getting a good start on those details. Okay, so I'm going to look at the stack up of dimensions, maybe look at an earlier version of the technical drawing book, and see if there's something missing or that wasn't quite spelled out, see if we can come up with a correction. Alright, so I think I found the dimension. The 45 degrees that I put off of vertical is actually off of this back face. That brought everything in quite a bit, not so critical of an angle, and so that one missed dimension caused kind of a headache as we went through the build. So the test is that we'll go ahead and let it rebuild and check the geometry that everything rebuilt correctly. Go ahead and save. When we jump over into the sheet, then I still have one interesting number there. Oh, my center line. Okay, so my center line didn't quite stay centered. Let's see if we can get the center line to go in correctly. All right, from edge to edge. All right, so that time it did it. And center lines can drag, so we'll open that up just a little bit more. And then from the hole to the outside, 51. Let's put in the angles and off of the edge. And that wasn't what I was looking for. Alright, so make sure that it gets placed in between. And pick up our other dimensions. Alright, so now that I have that vertical, want to use it, but we really need to pay attention to the dimension and to the angle. We'll flip those to the inside. Well, that's not. I guess there's enough room in there to make that look okay. That kind of stretched out a little bit, so we'll bring it down back into the drawing view. All right, so as those move, we'll fit everything into our work area. And overall, except for a little cleanup, I think that's good.